Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back as we continue the budget presentations for today, October 28th, Friday. This is the continuation of what we call affectionately the Coordinator Day. So many of the coordinator departments are finishing up this afternoon. So we're going to begin with the budget presentation from the Internal Audit Department with Mr. Tetzel, and then we'll be followed by the Department of Information Technology. Welcome, Mr. Dahl. Welcome home. And then we'll be hearing a budget presentation from the Meet Minneapolis, the Target Center, and the Minneapolis Convention Center, followed by the budget presentation from the Finance and Property Services Department at 3 o'clock, which will include a presentation from the mayor. So let us begin. And Mr. Tetzel, whenever you're ready, we can begin with the Internal Audit Department.
Thank you, Chair Quincy, council members and staff. My name is Will Tetzel. I'm here to present the budget to the 2017 budget for the Internal Audit Department. On this slide, we have a org chart that illustrates how we report up through the Audit Committee and administratively through the City Coordinator's Office. And there are currently 2 senior auditors, and we've been using a couple of interns as well. To summarize the 2017 budget ask, we've lumped everything into one program as we have in the past. General funds last year was $592,000. The mayor's recommended funding for 2017 is $720,000, which includes one change item, and that's one FTE. So we currently have 3, including myself, and then an additional one for 2017. This is ongoing funding, not one time. Our core programs, I think you're all familiar with internal audit, but really we are here to help the city understand the environment of risk that it's in, to assess that risk, and to help make recommendations to improve our posture in assessing and addressing risk and responding to that. We also do investigations for fraud and misconduct, consultations, ad hoc projects, and general advice to departments. The big buckets of service that we provide are audits, consultations, investigations, and ad hoc projects. The department was reestablished in October late of 2014. Since then, we've done annual risk assessments. We've had approved audit plans that we've conducted and worked through. Every year they've changed to some extent, and we continue to see that as a trend. The value that we really bring is again, helping the city understand where we have risk that's undermanaged and what we do about that. Our mission is to serve the city of Minneapolis and the public interest by providing objective services that enhance the city's ability to manage risk, improve internal controls, optimize efficiencies, reduce costs, and strengthen accountability. This slide goes through our 3 types of engagements. Consultations are typically focused on new or changing processes where we look at the structure of the process and give recommendations to departments or divisions. There is no findings, and follow-up is informal if there are any. Usually we allow departments to request whether or not they want us to follow up and report back on the recommendations that we gave. Audits are more formal engagements where we test as much detail as we can, come up with all of the facts and evidence, and provide findings to the audit committee and to the departments with recommendations and responses. We formally follow up on those responses and report back to the audit committee on those. Investigations come up when there is fraud or misconduct or other suggested areas to investigate, and those really differ just by the topic. An overview of the department here. We talked about the funding levels and FTEs. The goals that we most closely align with are a city that works, and the values that we most closely align with are equity and safety. We don't have findings typically on equity issues, but we try to work closely with the equity team to provide them information when we see disparities in some of those topical areas. So the change item here is one additional FTE at $104,000. Again, this is an ongoing FTE that we're asking for.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tetzel. Real quick question on your staffing levels right now. The current staffing, I believe, is 3, and then this change item is an additional 1. Mm-hmm. Are you currently fully staffed?
We're currently fully staffed, correct.
Okay, right. Yep. And under the presumption that this additional person comes on and is approved in the budget process in January, what's the time frame to bring on an additional person?
As soon as we can. Yeah, we're talking with finance and HR about what the position will look like. We're aiming for like a supervisor or manager level position. So doing the administrative work to get that set up will take some time, but we're trying to do a little bit of that beforehand and get someone on as quickly as possible.
Very good. Yeah. If there's any questions or comments, I certainly want to give Councilmember Palmisano, who chairs the Audit Committee, an opportunity to say all the good work that they've done or something, but if there's nothing, that's fine too. Go ahead, Councilmember Palmisano.
Well, Mr. Chair, the Audit Department is full of good work for our city, but this budget ask seems pretty straightforward. It will enhance a lot of the work that Audit already is able to do. They currently have a work plan that, as you know, continually is working to it continually reprioritizes itself based on new projects and new needs. So this will allow us to actually get quite a bit more done year to year on this work plan. So
very good.
That'd be good.
Well, thank you for that comment, and thank you again, Councilmember Palmisano, for joining today. And I have neglected to identify that we've been joined by Councilmember Goodman since the beginning. So thank you for being here and being part of this process. As we know, we don't have to have a quorum to conduct this business. This is just an information sharing and gives us the opportunity to ask questions. So we have a flow of council members throughout the day as schedules permit. So with that concluded, thank you very much, Mr. Tetzel. We look forward to the next budget presentation. This is Information Technology Department. Looks like you're already loaded on your slides, Mr. Dahl. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, take a breath, because people should know you just got here from the airport a few moments ago.
Yes. Thank you very much. Chairman Quincy, members of the committee. The information technology budget has some changes this year in it. Organizationally, we've stayed the same as we were last year, so there's been no changes there. In general, and what I'll be talking about for the rest of my time is what makes up the approximately 20% increase in non-general funding, as well as the 2 additional FTE. So we'll start with the first of 3 core programs that make up IT. The first is Decision Support Services, and to refresh your memory, this is where IT supports city government relative to providing workers with needed real-time integrated information from a digitized city. And so our whole focus is to ensure that we have some data governance that allows our information to be as accurate as possible, that we have the ability to manage that and the tools to then look at that information and gain knowledge for our decision making. To that end, there are no specific increases in this area, but you can see that there is an adjustment upward in this arena, and it is due primarily to two 2017 CARS requests that I will talk to in detail at the tail end of this presentation. Those are the Enterprise Content Management System and the Enterprise Address Data capability. One of the measures that we use to determine how we are doing relative to decision support services is we look at what information is made available across the organization. Departments, of course, gather and use a fair amount of information within their standard operating procedures. Where we can provide this information across those jurisdictional boundaries, where we can share that through vehicles with the public and with the various partners, whether it's the county, the state, federal government as necessary. This has been a focus of ours, and you can kind of see how we've added things. Some of these data sets are extremely large, and some are small, but again, the orientation is making information as readily available to the workforce at large here in the city. We don't necessarily know all the potential connections that will be useful by departments, and therefore our focus is, again, to give people the tools to get at information that may reside physically outside of the department or the work unit that they may be in. We also keep track of, and I think it's a good measure of how automated our operations are, in the sense of how many items, content items, if you will, are in our enterprise content management ecosystem. And as you can see, we've made a fair change in our from 2014 to 15. And we're going to see a bump like that again when we implement the new enterprise content management system here in the coming years. But again, this is a growing area of where the departments are putting a lot more information out, but they're doing it in a structured, organized way where they have as much efficiency as possible, because information has a tendency to need to be updated to keep it from being stale and actually out of date. And so therefore, the tools that we plan on providing city departments will enhance that capability. Now, the second program area that IT has is really sort of the plumbing, if you will, of IT. Infrastructure deals with our networking and computing capabilities for all the apps that and other things that people do, whether it's to communicate across the city or to external partners or out to the internet, and exercising various applications that may run on our managed service provider or may run in various implementations in various, as it's known in the industry, cloud implementations. So infrastructure support services is basically, think of it as like the lights. People hopefully know how to turn it on, and it works hopefully every time. And should it not, then the service desk, in our case, in IT, is there to support people. Those people that run maybe to your workstation or your office are in our support services group, and they're all included here in infrastructure support services. Now, there is a fairly sizable increase in this program, and it is due to a set of CARS requests that were put in by departments, and those were included this year within the IT budget. So that's the majority of that increase. There's also dollars in here for technology refreshing, And also, there is one CARS request from the IT area, which is an application security testing, and I'll talk about that in detail towards the end. But the majority of our increases were in this world, even though we're not adding any additional staff.
Mr. Dahl, before you
Yes.
go, you were just talking a little bit about staff, and I've been asking about the status of our current FTEs by department. Where are we at with the current budgeted FTEs for IT?
We do have and are actively seeking to fill positions that we have available within the staff. And to tell you the truth, I'd have to double check on this, but we have a number of openings. I believe it's 10, but don't hold me to that at this point.
So at this point, we don't have everybody filled, but we've made a big gains, because this is really the first year that you've been under this operation, right? With the city employees having that role rather than the outsourced previous provider.
Yes.
So this is a way to still catch up, because it was a big ask to hire as many as we hired last year.
Yes.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Infrastructure services, a couple of measures that we look at, and please recognize that since we changed our managed service provider officially at the beginning of this year, our measurements and so forth are having to change. I did pull two things to give you a little bit of a sense of where IT spends its time. We spend an awful lot of our time giving people permissions to various data and applications, and that's a never-ending challenge. As people get moved around, as new employees come in, as old ones or employees leave, I should say, whether it's retirement or otherwise, but there's just an awful lot of activity for IT to ensure that we have the proper security on the assets, the IT assets that the city runs on. We have down in the lower right, the thing that we watch most closely are critical outages, are those that affect a widespread part of the city, and I believe we're at 0.9%. And so, we look to keep that as close, if not at zero, as possible. We will potentially have some other, maybe hopefully more meaningful measures in infrastructure services in the future. Workforce enablement services is the last program within IT. Here, what we're really trying to do is ensure that, again, the workforce has the tools they need. Beyond them having computing devices and access through a network to wherever they need to communicate with, really sort of where the rubber meets the road are the information systems that they make use of day in and day out. And so we spend in this area dollars to ensure that people can get solutions to their IT needs, marrying up technology to whatever a business unit needs to have done. We then manage that portfolio and of applications, as well as on very large projects, we provide project management services. And a big area in this arena is our enterprise resource planning ecosystem, or ERP system. People may know it as PeopleSoft, and we have a lot of services that we have to deploy to keep that going. If you remember last year, we updated or upgraded that world significantly. There is an actual reduction in this area year over year, in the sense that we have a number of one-time CARS request from 2016 that came off. So you see a reduction there. We did move some positions to other areas of the IT world. So there was a reduction there. There's also, we had 2 manager positions that we eliminated with restructuring. And then also, there are 2 positions, though, that we're seeking, which will fall in this arena, which I will go through next. The first one is our business analyst for the enterprise land management world, or as I like to call it, an ecosystem. As you're well aware, we are upgrading and replacing a whole series of information systems that collectively allow the city to do all the sorts of things we do with land management. And we have consolidated that into a much smaller pool of systems, which will be going live next month. One of the things that this does is it really brings the operation of 12 city departments together so that we get the benefits of, for instance, being able to look at a business and all the different things that they may have currently working with the city, various permits and licenses and what have you. There's any number of capabilities that this system provides, and traditionally our business analysts, they move from one project to the next, from in essence one potential department to the next on working on various projects. We see that just in the land management ecosystem that it's so extensive and so integrated today that we're really seeing a need to have someone dedicated to this arena. And so therefore we're asking for an additional position to give us that capability. The second position we're seeking is in our enterprise resource planning area. In particular, in the ERP world, in the past, there's really kind of 2 sides to ERP. One's the financial side and the other's the human resource side. In the financial side, IT has had 3 people dedicated. Back before the recession, we also had 3 people dedicated in the human resource side. During the recession, HR, which is paid by, in essence, finance and HR. And so there was an opportunity when we lost an employee. HR took that opportunity during the recession to drop that position. So we went down to 2 people. What we have seen since then in the last 5 years is we're continually getting behind the needs of human resources to the point of normally when you look at the finance side, you may see 6, 8 projects that are currently in flight. The last time I looked on the HR side, we had 58 requests in the hopper. We're just not able to keep up. And so what I'm requesting here is an additional person to get us back up to the levels that we were before recession, so that we can keep up with the various things. Human resources, a good example of something that has just hit them, the ACA or the acronym now is lost. I've lost the acronym. Affordable Care Act. Thank you. Has come up recently here. Actually, it started for the first time last year. The federal government extended the time for the various stakeholders in that program to get things squared away. This year, they're holding to their timelines, and so we have we've had to put other things back on the burner so that we could see to it that ACA needs make sure our mailings go out by January 31st and various other requirements of that law that the city has to abide by. So again, that's what we're looking for in the way of a technician to work on the human resource, primarily on the human resource ERP needs. One of the things that we look at to try to view this particular program is we have hundreds of information systems that the departments collectively make use of. We gauge whether or not those information systems are currently within their useful life. And then we also, as you see in the yellow, or, well, it's darker here, the dark bar, part of the bar, is where those information systems are getting within 3 years of the end of their useful life. Sometimes that is due to vendors going to new versions. For vendors, again, going to new versions, but dropping support for older versions that we might be on, et cetera. And then on the far right part of the bars represent those information systems that are beyond their useful life. One of the challenges we have in IT is we sort of have to do what I like to call a leveling game, in the sense that we have to make sure that everything plays nice with everything else that it needs to touch. And more of our information systems interact with each other and most definitely the outside world, and some of our base infrastructure services. And so we're constantly having to sometimes get information systems, not just the underlying hardware and software that IT maintains, in line so that it will continue to function and, if you will, play nice with everything else. As you can see over time, we've made, I think, really excellent progress. The top lines there in 2016, that's through July of this year. As I mentioned, there are 3 CARS requests that IT put in, and I'll briefly go through each one of those, starting with the application security testing. As IT checks out security and does tests on our infrastructure, whether our network is secure, whether or not our computing devices are secure, we also need to do as good a job as we can to ensure that our actual information systems are secure. Our information systems are going sort of at times outside of our direct purview. Number one, we do have a managed service provider, so we need to verify everything that is running in the OneNet data centers. Also, for those applications that, again, we make use of in someone else's cloud, this capability that we're seeking this money for would allow us to use a system that can help us gauge and test application security of even those third-party applications that might be hosted outside of our managed service provider data center, as well as our own internally. So this is really a security need as far as we're concerned. The second one is the Enterprise Content Management System. This is a multi-year effort. We're in the process of getting ready to run an actual RFP process. And again, today what you see in the way of our website presence is under the control of a fairly antiquated content management system. It is old enough that the American Disabilities Act that came out a number of years ago, it doesn't really do anything to check for compliance, et cetera. The new systems that are on the marketplace today give you that ability. And so that's one of the primary reasons. Again, this is one of those situations where we've got an information system, this one at a very basic level, since it's what departments use to publish their information, to change it over time. in any of the web presence, whether it's our external-facing public website or, for instance, our internal City Talk web presence. And so we are looking to continue that effort and are seeking $1 million this year for that capability. And then finally, one of the really key aspects of data for a city is a lot of things are really tied to location. And what we need to do is we need to cleanse where addressing that is representing apartments that presents some unique challenges for us in our enterprise addressing scheme. This is the last piece of what we've been working on for an enterprise addressing scheme. And so as we upgrade information systems, as we potentially write our own, we are using that enterprise addressing scheme so that hopefully any worker within city government that is, has an address, and wherever they may be looking, whatever information system they may end up using, it should point to the same place. And so that's a general challenge that we have. By the way, we've also been talking to the county and some of the local governments as well about this, because a lot of information flows, particularly between the county and us, to ensure that our addressing syncs up properly. And so we're looking for $50,000 for us to accomplish that in the coming year. And that is the end of my formal remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dahl. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. It's a big undertaking. It's been a terrific year, getting a new staff, coordinating the transition with One Neck as our provider. It's been remarkable. You guys have been under a lot of pressure, and you've handled it remarkably well, and certainly within the budget constraints. So thank you very much for your performance, not only from my enterprise, but from my financial performance. It's been really, really exciting to see how well managed it is. So with that, we'll conclude with that presentation. We look forward to the next presentation, and I'm seeing from Mr. Cronk, we don't have quite our the convention center and Meet Minneapolis are still a few minutes away. So we will take a recess, and I will reconvene as soon as they're available. Thank you. Welcome, and feel free to begin as you're ready. Looks like you're ready.
Council members, my name is Jeff Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the Minneapolis Convention Center. You can find our budget on budget book pages F55 through F60. First slide is our organizational chart. I will just point out that with me today is Mark Zerbel, our Director of Event Services. And then Katie Smith, who actually works for Meet Minneapolis, but we call her one of our own, is our Director of Sales and Marketing. We have 4 main programs: the Facilities Program, Tallmadge Program, Target Center Program, and the Events Program, along with some supplemental requests. The Convention Center Facility Program provides the funding for the physical building and grounds of the Convention Center, as well as the staff to maintain that city asset. As you can see on the next slide, we are asking for more money this year in the Facilities Program. It is a $10.5 million capital recommendation, which I will get to in a moment in the presentation. But otherwise, if you took that out, we are asking for a little bit less this year in our facilities program. Operational excellence in our facilities program is found in our commitment to recycling. We have significantly increased our recycling rate over the last 5 years. And if you look at the amount of waste that we've recycled just even this year, 460 tons, that is the equivalent weight of 6 space shuttles. So we've recycled a lot of waste, and it is something that we feel very strongly to make sure that our impact on our community is a positive impact. Preserving water has also been a focus through the facilities program. This summer, we installed a 250,000-gallon cistern to collect rainwater off of our 17-acre roof at an annual rate of 5.4 million gallons. This will allow us to substantially reduce the amount of irrigation water that we use. Comparing 2009 totals to 2015 totals, we saved 4 million gallons of water. That equates to about 450 tanker trucks full of water. So again, another area that we feel very strongly the facility programs allows us to make great strides. Energy reduction has also been a goal for us. Although weather and building activity do cause variances, it makes it a challenge for us. But in 2015, we really focused on some operational changes that got us back on track to substantial savings, as you can see. We were able to do that when 2015 was also our busiest year to date. So a very impressive feat for our staff and through all of the investments that we've made into the building to make sure that we are efficient. Our next program is the Tallmadge Program. The Tallmadge building is currently operated as an office building that's leased to local businesses. In 2017, we need to step back and take a look at the future for the Tallmadge building. We need to evaluate that and come up with a plan, present it to the mayor and city council for discussion. Right now, we have all of our leases in the Tallmadge building to end mid-year 2017. There are pretty substantial investments that would need to be made in that building to keep it running as it is. And before we would ask to make those investments, we really need to, again, get people involved in talking about the future of what the Tallmadge building could be.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Johnson. Councilmember Goodman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the Tallmadge building, is the $90,000 the difference between the revenue we generate in leases and what it costs to operate? Because are we paying taxes to ourselves on that building, or what's the tax? What is the $90,000 for, and what are the expenses?
Chair Quincy, Councilmember Goodman, the $90,000 is the revenue that we bring in through the rents. Our expenses are around $225,000 a year, and then from a tax standpoint, we don't pay property taxes on it because it is a city building.
What are the expenses that total $225,000? If we have tenants, I assume they pay their own utilities, they pay some sort of CAM. So
they do. There are expenses for cleaning. There are expenses for maintenance. There are other operating expenses that we have. We are not fully rented right now, and so we do have to pay some of the utilities for the spaces that are not rented.
And do you know what the tax value of the building is?
I do not know a current tax value, no.
Mr. Chair, you probably remember there have been efforts in the past to potentially dispose of this building for an affordable housing use, which I would completely support. One of the reasons that didn't work before was because we wanted to sell the building for $4 million. Well, if there's significant capital investment needed in the building at this point, then the value is probably not $4 million. And I could look it up if I had the address here. But it seems to me to be an opportunity to put affordable housing in a very affluent portion of downtown across the street from where we lost 95 units. Mm-hmm. I realize that these guys have other ideas, but let me toss out my idea as a policymaker, which is for us to look at whether or not the building makes sense for us to lease anymore. And if it doesn't, make it available for affordable housing uses, because that's a big goal of the city. Or
the highest best use is always a preferred use of a building. Housing, especially in that area, given the loss from Westminster, would be an appropriate thing to consider.
I mean, it might not be the highest and best use in terms of revenue generated, but in terms of city priorities, it's a higher priority than using it for convention-related uses or using it for a visitor center, which has been discussed multiple times. And I'm sure there's some plan in place that I'm unaware of already to use it as part of this multi-million-dollar plaza, if that ever happened. So I'm sure we're just not hearing about it right now. So I want to lay out there that this building in my ward, my priority would be to use it for affordable housing. And I've said that before.
Could we just review? I'm just a little confused on how the funding in 2017 is $90,000. What's that $90,000? Is that what Councilmember Goodman was talking about? Just the operations of an empty building?
Operations of an empty building, correct.
Okay. And then the 175 we had in there as an expenditure in 16. How is that going to? Why did it go down so much? Just because it's not leased?
Because it's not leased. The leases only go through half of 2017.
Okay, so this is just reflecting the expenditure portion of the budget. It doesn't account for whatever revenues would have balanced, and this is not a net position. This is just expenditures.
Correct. Sorry if I was confusing.
Yep.
It is confusing, but they do have operating revenues at $36,000 on the first page of this.
Yeah, on the first page of the program, it does say that. But it also says that the leases will end in mid-17. So
Correct.
that 36 represents what will be paid until July of 17.
Correct.
Good. Thank you.
It is a very small portion of our overall budget.
So how long are we going to be able to support it as a empty building without a plan? How can we talk about a Tallmadge plan?
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that definitely we want to bring forward and have people talk about. I think, it's not overly expensive, especially as a shuttered building. And so, we will have enough time to bring up all sorts of ideas and decide what the mayor and the council want to do.
But it wouldn't be within the 17, but that's when we should be doing our programming for 18.
Correct. And again, I'm not wedded to a timeline
Fine.
that will be driven by what the council would like to do.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I'm wedded to a timeline. If there's going to be the end of leases mid-2017, we should be talking right now about what we want to do so that the building, if it's to be sold or given to someone to work on affordable housing, that they can get going into the pool for funding that right now. So what are we waiting for?
Okay. Good direction.
Yeah, having it sit empty is not working to anybody's benefit, but I agree it has to go through a process and a plan, and I think we could accelerate that as part of it, because nobody likes the idea of spending $100,000 a year without any kind of plan to generate revenues or to put it back into a different use. Good. Well, thank you very much.
All right, I'll move on to our Target Center program. The Target Center program provides our operator reimbursements to AEG, which is the city's operator for the Target Center, debt service for the old debt, and capital funds for the Target Center. We are currently in about a third of the way done with our renovation of the Target Center. It's been a complicated process. Anytime you're in a renovation, it is complicated, but significant improvements have been made already. And many of those improvements are now being shown to the public. I'm sure that many of you have seen some of the pictures and some of the press releases lately. But there are many more notable improvements that will happen in 2017, and especially through the summer of 2017, we will shut down the Target Center and do a major amount of work. You can see that reflected in the next slide, that we are asking for less money this year in the Target Center program, much based because of the activity levels and ramping down and the renovation going on in 2017. Move on to our events program. This is how we service our clients and support the hospitality community. This program really drives economic activity and our impact to local businesses. We sustain in the hospitality community about 8,800 jobs. Our hospitality taxes that are directly attributable to MCC are about $21 million. And as we go into our economic impact, $374 million in economic impact to our community is estimated. We are projecting a record revenue year in 2017, so that is exciting. It's always nice to go into a year knowing that there's a lot of activity coming, and we're really proud to show a number of almost $18.8 million for revenue. We're excited about 17. We know that it's going to be a sprint, but there are a lot of great events coming.
Yeah, every year you're setting a new record that makes next year even harder, doesn't it?
It's been fun. It's been fun. It's been fun